Hello, and thank you very much for purchasing our 750cc Honda Shadow Spirit bobber kit. This thing's going to be a blast to bob out here, so just bear with me and let's get started on her. A couple of things before we begin. If you'll notice, I've tied the kickstand up. Let me just pan in on that for you. The reason I do that is I tie it to the foot peg. That way it can't collapse if the bike rolls forward when you're working on it. That's just a good way to have a little extra safety there, and then you don't want to be working on this bike and have it fall over. So tie that kickstand up before you get started. Then one other thing before you get started, and you'll need some basic tools, but you'll see my little broken roll around chair here. But grab yourself one of these chairs. It's just so much easier to work on these bikes. It's really fun because then you can kind of just sit down and roll around on them while you work on them. So grab yourself a cup of coffee and a chair and a rope, and let's get started. Okay, let's get started by just popping off these side covers. They just pry off. They're just little rubber grommets to hold them on there. So pop those off on both sides. And then to remove the seat, you've probably done this before. It's not rocket science, but go ahead and remove the screws on this side and the other side. And then the seat just lifts right off there. Okay, this rear fender is very simple to take off. What you want to do first, you want to remove the wires here from the little keepers. And then just unclip these wires from this, just slide that boot back there. And then just unclip these wires, just take them out of the connectors there like that. You just put a little teeny screwdriver under that little tab and pry up on it and they come right out. So go ahead and do that. Undo all three of those wires. There's a blue, orange, and white. And then what you do is just take these side bolts off from the fender here. There's two on each side. Just go ahead and remove those bolts, and then the fender just slides out the back. Okay, one thing I do on when I work on motorcycles is I screw the bolts back in the holes. That way you won't lose them. So just screw those in there, and then get in the habit of doing that if you can. And then whatever you do, we're going to use these connectors later. So whatever you do, don't throw that fender out or sell it yet. So we'll be back. If you decide you want to paint your gas tank on your bobber, it's a real simple process. So let me just show you how we do it here. Okay, what you want to do is be really careful with the gasoline because you know it's extremely flammable. So make sure you got the garage door open, a lot of ventilation, and be really, really careful with this. What I've done is I've just disconnected the fuel line on the left side of the motorcycle here from the filter. Make sure that you have the petcock in the off position when you disconnect that. A little teeny bit of gas will drip out when you first take it off. So go ahead and disconnect that, and then what I did, I just shoved a smaller hose inside this hose and then ran it into a gas can and drained all the gas out of the tank. When you do that, make sure the petcock is in the reserve position. And then also I kind of move the bike back and forth a little bit to make sure you get all the gas out of the tank. So anyway, while that's draining, go ahead and remove the screw in the back of the tank. That's the one that holds the back of the tank on right there. Remove that, and then we're going to want to disconnect take the gauge off. That's really, really simple on these. You just disconnect these, or just take those two screws out right here, and then you just slide that gauge forward. You can kind of just watch that wire, make sure it doesn't hook on something, then that'll just slide out of the way, and you can just kind of let it hang down beside the bike there. So that's how you get the gauge off. And then there's one other vent line we have to remove before we lift this tank off. Okay, this is the vent line right here. It's on the right side of the motorcycle in the back of the tank. Just go ahead and reach up there and pull that off. Then we should be able to just lift the tank off. Before lifting the tank off, make sure your petcock is in the off position. And then once you get the tank off, you can go ahead and tip the tank up over a gas can and drain all the rest of the gas out of it when it's on the reserve position there. I tip it up so that this back end of the gas tank is down kind of to the bottom of the way you tilt it. That way all the gas will come out, and kind of tip it around and stuff, and you'll get all that out of there. So anyway, there you have it. Let's move on. Okay, I've removed the fender from the forks here. You can go ahead and if you're gonna just run the stock size tire and then just have the front fender painted, then you can go ahead and just take it off here and leave this bottom piece on attached to the forks. So anyway, I took mine all the way off, and I'm going to send all this stuff to paint, and then we'll go ahead and install the bobber kit on this bad boy, and we'll continue on. Oh, I forgot to mention the rear fender too. You may want to send it out and have it painted with your tank and all that. So anyway, this is the rear fender here. Now you'll notice I've already painted this one, so you can do this before paint. And you may want to go ahead and mount this bracket on there. That's the way it mounts. what it does, it sandwiches these two straps, sandwiches the fender in between those straps. That way it kind of gives it a lot of support there. So these are the small screws. Okay, and the way it goes is, the way I do this is you just, we give you this drill in the kit. Go ahead and drill one hole first. Put the screw through. You just put the screw through it and hold it if you want, or put the nut on it. Then go ahead and drill the second hole. That way it won't move when you drill the second hole, and that way it'll line up really well. So anyway, that's the way it mounts. You probably don't want to have that painted. You may want to. It's up to you, but that's how that mounts. So go ahead and do that, and then you can send your fender out and have it painted.